The debate is on. We're all aware of this question, but do we know the answer to it? Today I will be contributing to the conversation by sharing my opinion, leading you to my claim by carefully analyzing this topic. What is GOAT? As most of you know, GOAT means greatest of all time, but what does it truly mean in general and in this context? Generally speaking, GOAT means the greatest personality, group, or thing that had ever existed in a specific field and or time span. Applying this meaning leads us to a critical choice when analyzing this question. Are we going to use statistics, or are we going to use our opinions as the main indicator to which of the all-time great teams is the best? I'll choose going down the road of analyzing this topic using my opinion. Why? Well, basketball changes, that's why. Today, each team plays similar, yet are all headed to playing positionless and fluid basketball. Back in the day, teams depended on a key player or two to create shots by themselves on isolations and post-ups. Why is this important? Because we would never truly know how today's teams would match up against the teams of the past, but what we do know is how they did against teams in their present. This is where the difference becomes clear to us between analyzing this topic by mainly considering opinion and statistics. You either define the GOAT by which of the teams were most dominant in their era, or by which teams you think would be the hardest to beat or have the highest chances to win in a one-on-one matchup with any other team. Let's get into this analysis by starting off with a very recent and a definitely memorable example. The 73-9 2015-2016 Golden State Warriors, or the 2017 Warriors. Many say that this is the best team of all time. Many don't. I don't. Coming back to the definition of the term GOAT, I prioritize opinions when it comes to this topic and not statistics. This analysis will include a comparison between this recent Warriors example and some teams which I think could beat them, with me finally concluding this study with stating which team I think is the best team of all time. For me, the 2015-2016 Warriors and or the 2017 Warriors could get beaten by several teams such as the 96 Bulls, the 87 Lakers, the 01 Lakers, and the 2003 Spurs. Before we get to the decision, justification, and the final statement, I'll present to you some honorable mentions. Let's start with the 2003 Spurs. To begin with, they had a 60-22 regular season record, which seems incomparable to the grandiose and untouchable 73-9 Warriors, or perhaps the 2017 Warriors, but this was a playoff matchup nightmare for every opponent they faced. The roster included a prime Tony Parker, rookie Manu Ginobili, and the best of Tim Duncan. Furthermore, they consisted of Steven Jackson, Bruce Bowen, Steve Smith, and an aged David Robinson. In the playoffs, they tackled the Steve Nash-less Phoenix Suns. Nevertheless, the Suns team consisted of Amari Stoudemire, Stephon Marbury, Joe Johnson, and Shawn Marion. The Spurs won in 6 games. Next, they played in one of the most memorable playoff clashes in playoff history, the 6-game series versus the Los Angeles Lakers. This matchup featured many close games and unforgettable scoring nights for the Stars on both sides, represented by Bryant's ridiculous 32.3, Shaq's 25.3, and Duncan's 28 point per game averages. Following that series, they encountered the Dallas Mavericks led by Dirk Nowitzki and Steve Nash. This series also ended in 6 games. To top it all off, the Texans faced off the back then known as New Jersey Nets, led by a great defensive core and, back then, the very dominant Jason Kidd. This great playoff run ended, yet again, in 6 games, with the Spurs winning it all that season. This is, in my opinion, the best Spurs team, and with the great coaching they had and this ability to win basketball games by giving the ball to maybe the best power forward of all time, Tim Duncan in the post, which is coincidentally the Warriors' biggest and perhaps the only weakness they have. We get left in a situation where the Warriors are having a hard time scoring on offense and more times than not, impossible to defend post shots by Tim Duncan on the defensive end. Yet, I still think there are teams that have greater chances at beating this almighty Warriors squad. The second team that I think that has a chance to beat the Warriors team is the 86-87 Los Angeles Lakers, also known as the Showtime Lakers. The roster consisted of a prime Magic Johnson, James Worthy, Byron Scott, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Michael Cooper, Kurt Rambis, and AC Green. By the sound of it, one can tell how immensely stacked this Lakers squad was. This team went 65-17 in the regular season and cruised to the finals by beating the Denver Nuggets in 3 games, which was possible back then as the first round was a best-of-5 series. Next, the Lakers went on to beat the Warriors in 5 games in a best-of-7 series, and finally swept the 7th-seeded Seattle Supersonics. The final series was played against a prime Boston Celtics team, which had Larry Bird, Kevin McHale, Robert Parrish, and aged Bill Walton, Dennis Johnson, Danny Ainge, and Rick Carlisle. Clearly visible is the firepower that both teams possessed, as Larry Legend posted an incredible 24, 10, and 5 per game average. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar put in 21 points per game, and lastly Magic Johnson put up 26 points, 8 rebounds, and 13 assists over the course of this memorable final series. The series was fairly even, yet the Lakers clutched several pivotal games, such as Game 4 at the Boston Garden, that led to a 6-game victory for the Lakers. Yet again, I reckon that this Showtime Lakers team would beat the Warriors, by locking the Warriors down in the perimeter as they were an elite defensive team, and most importantly, had a huge height advantage. The Lakers would easily out-rebound the Warriors, and with their fast-paced offense, led by the great Magic Johnson, would get many easy buckets in the paint after missed shots on both ends. I'm also entitled to the opinion that they would beat the 0-3 Spurs, as this Lakers team simply has too much offensive and defensive firepower at all times for the Spurs to keep up. Lastly, for the honorable mentions, I would like to talk about the 0-1 Lakers. This team was blessed with a dominant Shaquille O'Neal, Kobe Bryant, Robert Horry, Ron Harper, Rick Fox, and Tyronn Lue to lead this franchise to glory. The 0-1 Lakers went 56-26 in the regular season, earning them the 2 seed in the Western Conference. As most of you might know, this team had the best playoff run in NBA history by only losing 1 game in the whole 54-day playoffs. The playoffs began fairly easily, with the Lakers sweeping the Portland Trail Blazers in a best-of-5 series. Next, they swept the 3-seeded Sacramento Kings, and finally, they even swept the defending champion, the San Antonio Spurs, with absolute ease. Getting into this final series, it was clear who were the favorites. The Lakers, of course, who destroyed all the competition that got in their way. But in the first game of the series, the 76ers, carried by none other than the great Allen Iverson, went out to clutch out the game. AI finished this legendary playoffs classic game with an incredible stat line of 48 points, 5 rebounds, 6 assists, and 5 steals. Even after the strong efforts of Shaq, who scored 44 points and caught 20 rebounds, it just wasn't enough to stop the 6-foot-tall Allen Iverson. Even though this Lakers team was just too good to beat, this game was going on in the books as one of the most legendary in playoffs history. After this crazy Wednesday evening at Staples Center, in none other than the City of Angels, the Lakers were just too tough to beat for any team at that time. The final series went on to only end in 5 games. Once again, I'm of an opinion that this squad would beat the Warriors, the 0-3 Spurs, and perhaps even the Showtime Lakers, because they've proven that they're better on a head-to-head matchup against the San Antonio Spurs, and they definitely have enough firepower to keep with the Showtime Lakers. And with a more modern offense, a deeper bench, and definitely deeper range, this 0-1 Lakers team has earned the entitlement of being the favorite for the number 3 spot on my all-time teams list. Now, the time has come for the final decision, and my pick for the greatest of all time is the 1995-1996 Chicago Bulls. Now, where should I start? They have simply got it all. The Chicago Bulls team, led by the most iconic duo in sports history, and the GOAT himself, Michael Air Jordan, and Scottie Pippen. Additionally, they had one of the best rebounders in basketball history in Dennis Rodman, a straight-up 3-point sniper in Steve Kerr, who coincidentally appears as head coach of this Bulls team's main rivals in this comparison, an exceptional sixth man in Tony Kukoc, and a perimeter defensive beast in Ron Harper. Otherwise, not much, but who honestly cares? I mean, they have the greatest player to ever set foot on the basketball court, an exceptionally good sidekick and Hall of Famer, a Hall of Fame rebounding specialist, and overall, a grade A supporting cast. In this record-breaking season, the Bulls set the record for the most wins in a regular season with 72, and held this record for a cool 20 years, until this Warriors team showed up and showed down. In the playoffs, this Bulls team swept the Heat in a best-of-5 series, which possessed Alonzo Mourning and Tim Hardaway. Next, they beat the Knicks in 5 games in a 7-game series, and finally, they swept the Magic, which was led by the young duo of Shaquille O'Neal and Tim Hardaway. In the finals against the Seattle Supersonics, led by Shawn Kemp and Gary Payton, Jordan averaged 27 points, while on the other end, the scoring was pretty balanced out between the starters. The Bulls took it to 6 games, and it ended there. And for me, it's not even questionable to who is superior in this matchup. The GOAT is no match to Klay Thompson or Stephen Curry or even Kevin Durant. His and Pippen's defense would lock down Steph and KD, perhaps only letting them score off of tough shots throughout. Klay Thompson would be guarded by Ron Harper, who is also 6'6" and a great perimeter defender. Ron Harper could potentially guard Steph Curry, but MJ was usually left to guard the other team's best player, and Kevin Durant would be a height mismatch for the GOAT, so Harper would usually be left with guarding Thompson. Draymond Green would be guarded by Dennis Rodman, coincidentally the player he's being constantly compared to, and this would be a good matchup for Rodman, whereas for Draymond it is depending on how it is going for him that day. Defensively, the Warriors just don't have the firepower to keep up with Air Jordan. Nobody could guard him on isolations, let alone on post-ups. They would have to constantly shadow him in the paint or double him up, where he would either shoot it over the defender or pass it to the open man, which would probably lead to an easy score in the paint or from deep. This team has proven to beat so many all-time great teams with so many all-time great players over the years that it would be too easy for them to beat the other teams on this list, for maybe except the 0 Lakers, as Kobe in his prime could go at anybody, and it is proven that he could attack Jordan in-game, for example in Jordan's last year in 2003, where Kobe dropped 55 points on him. Obviously, playing Jordan in his last year is no comparison to his prime version, but just playing against his airness intimidates grown men that have already proven themselves on the biggest of stages. Shaq will dominate the post and the glass, but yet again, we're left with the same question. Is anybody going to be able to keep Michael Jordan away from full control in the offensive end? I don't think so. Shaq is also human, and MJ has proven to be able to score over big men, including Shaq, for example in the 96 season in the Eastern Conference Finals, throughout his 13-year career. Air Jordan also has established evidence that he can score on any elite perimeter defender, including Gary Payton, which he dominated in the 96 finals. I have presented to you my list of all-time great teams, where I selected one to crown as the GOAT. We looked at matchups and playing styles and how these would match up in a head-to-head clash, and we also looked at various statistics. If you're a fan of in-depth and relevant multi-sports content, then please feel free to leave a like and subscribe. I would love to hear constructive criticism in the comment section below, and lastly, your opinion. Thank you for taking your time. Have a great day.